this rapper claims that Kendrick Lamar influenced him to believe in God. If you guys aren't familiar, Kendrick Lamar recently put out an album, and on that album there was a feature by a gentleman who had a bridge chorus, spooky, scary, right? His name is Lefty Gunplay. He is a rapper, famous gangbanger from Los Angeles, California, and his name is Lefty Gunplay. He's kind of a character, and you guys wanted me to react to this clip of him saying that Kendrick Lamar influenced him to believe in God. Now, it doesn't seem to be a lot of context about this, but I'm going to do my best to react to this and kind of go from there. Lefty Gunplay is huge in the Chicano, Latino community, and kind of like in that, Mexican OT world. He is not a Christian. Neither is Kendrick Lamar, by the way. And people are kind of using this as like a pragmatic argument for, look, Kendrick Lamar is doing good work because Lefty Gunplay believes in God because of this. So let's take a look at this clip. It's a very short clip. So shout out to our Patreon community. If you guys ever want to know how we come up with our topics, it's usually through our Patreon community. Our Patreon community will send us stuff and ask me to react to stuff, and that's how we react to it.
I believe in God now.
Why now? What happened?
Shit, I believe in God as of last week.
Okay.
Good. That's good.
What made
So he believes in God as of last week. Now, again, Lefty Gunplay is a character. He's a very interesting character. All right.
What made you build your relationship with God? How did that start?
Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
Wow, that's deep.
The way he could change your life and like what you gonna do with it. You was never a bad.
Okay. Let me hold on.
You was never a lust model first.
Right.
To be a bad in LA. Hey, to be a bad in LA.
Oh my God. The lyrics.
Crazy, scary, spooky, hilarious, and I seen it.
You see some blacks going like that, and it's mustard, they paid mustard and Kendrick Lamar going like that, it's a hit. And you're just like this.
Okay, so that's Lefty Gunplay. What do you guys want me to say? Listen, one, doesn't James say that you claim to believe there's only one God, even the demons believe in that? That doesn't mean anything just because someone says they believe in God. And I'm excited to bring you guys our very first 3-day conference called the Bless God Summit, happening March 27th, 28th, 29th in Southern California. And at this conference, we'll have your very own Preston Perry.
Me as an evangelist, I've made it up in my mind that I'm not going to leave people with an excuse not to serve Jesus.
Dr. Sean McDowell.
If there's one thing Christians should care about, it's truth.
Our vision with this conference is to equip, empower, and inspire people to do the work of the ministry that God has for them in this time. And at this conference, we'll have your very own Alan Parr and his wife, Jim Parr.
The number one reason, people want to get divorced because they want to find someone else who can make them happy. Now, what they don't realize, they're chasing the wind.
John McCrae from What Do You Mean?
What you may be shocked, or you may not be shocked to know, is that the majority of Christians in America, they don't know how to articulate the message of the gospel to non-believers.
Lila Rose.
Love and marriage go together, that sex and marriage go together, that sex can bring life into the world. And that's an amazing thing. That's not a bad thing.
Trizzle Fitness.
Most people fail at dieting because they're just trying to lose weight too fast. What are you in such a rush for?
But where a lot of people get stuck is figuring out what it looks like to walk in that. And so these 3 pillars of our conference will be covering everything from apologetics to family in the home and the marketplace, and how you can lean into those 3 pillars to discover your calling on this side of eternity. Okay, they went from, atheist to deist, agnostic to deist, agnostic to theist. Great. I'm glad. That's a step in the right direction. The vast majority, unfortunately, of Lefty Gunplay's music is completely hedonistic in every sense of the word. So this idea that now he is a believer in God because of Kendrick, which God? The God of the Bible? The God of the New Testament, Jesus in the flesh? Even in those comments, people were saying, well, he can't say his name, right? So Kendrick can believe in God, and my question would be, which God does Kendrick believe in? The God of the Bible or the God of Eastern religion and New Age mysticism? The God inside of you is the God, of the universe, and the universe is God, and pantheism, and therefore, what does that even mean? So God is a very generic title. God is a very generic title. So I don't know what that means in terms of Lefty Gunplay. believe in God. Now, if that took him in the direction to understand that there's something beyond this material world, I guess that's a step in the right direction. The vast majority of Lefty Gunplay's content, though, is harmful. And my issue with Lefty Gunplay is less about Lefty Gunplay, more about the personification of hedonism to a younger generation and people thinking that it's cool to be on alcohol, be on. He's admitted to doing hard. He's repeatedly in these interviews going viral for all the wrong reasons. And I guess like him believing in God is a good thing. My concern is I think everyone knows Lefty Gunplay is a character, right? My concern is not Lefty Gunplay. My concern is people who think that Kendrick Lamar is a conduit of the Bible, goodness, Jesus, Christianity. He isn't. He isn't. And this isn't proof that he is. Lefty Gunplay say, "Oh, now I believe." That's not proof that Kendrick Lamar is now in the right sphere or presenting theology or a coherent worldview or something that ushers in the grace and the mercy of Jesus Christ. That is not what that means. So Lefty Gunplay, if your argument is Kendrick Lamar is an evangelist because Lefty Gunplay says he believes in God because of Kendrick Lamar, that's a big womp. If your argument is, hey, Kendrick had a positive influence on Lefty Gunplay, okay, great, awesome. What does positive mean? Right? We have to then get really specific with words. What does positive mean? Positive in what sense? Positive as in you are self-actualizing yourself and the ego and pride. What does that mean? Or are we saying positive as in pointing you closer towards a Christian worldview? All these words have to be defined. And I don't know if Kendrick Lamar pushes anyone towards a Christian worldview in the grand scheme of things. I think in an abstract sense, maybe on the first album, right? But I don't know. Kendrick meticulously says exactly what he means to say down to each word. I feel like he would be bold about Jesus if he meant it. Well said, John. I would agree with you. So maybe this is a catalyst, because I will say that there is a degree of me going from not believing in God, being an atheist, to then being open to the idea of God because of Tupac and DMX, that then set me on the trajectory to eventually become a Christian. God can use people in that sense. Absolutely. But the issue we get into is pragmatism. This is what I mean by pragmatism. I'm not sure if you guys understand pragmatism. Pragmatism is because I started warming up to the idea of God because of listening to Tupac, which is that's really what happened to me, or because of listening to DMX, I became open to the idea of Jesus, which is true for me, that therefore God is in the midst and endorsing the overall gist of what Tupac and DMX ushered into the world. And that is not a coherent thought. Just because God can use a Tupac to reach me or a DMX to reach me in the 90s does not mean that God is endorsing, proud of, happy with, celebrating the majority and the worldview that was propagated by Tupac and DMX. Does not make sense. That is the reality. And so I think a lot of times we want to say the ends justify the means. Oh, look, Ruslan was reached by DMX and Tupac, and therefore if someone starts believing in Jesus because of Kendrick, therefore God is using Kendrick the way he's using your local church pastor. And that is not what's happening. God makes straight lines out of crooked sticks all the time. God can use very flawed people all the time. That doesn't mean that those flawed people aren't responsible for the decisions and the poison that they're putting out into the world, right? So yes, I started believing in God in part because of Tupac. However, how many people were hit him up while they were going to do drive-bys? How many people were putting on DMX while they were going and robbing and stealing people, right? You see what I'm saying? And what is the ultimate point of that music as a soundtrack? Now, I understand they have redemptive songs. DMX would always have a prayer and a Christian song on his album. Tupac had thoughtful songs like Dear Mama. But in the downstream effects, I don't think that the majority of what they were ushering in was thoughtfulness and reflection. Maybe Tupac, maybe DMX here and there, but the overall, having lived through it. And I would say Kendrick is a bit more evolved than both Tupac and DMX. He's older as well, right? In terms of like Kendrick's at his peak in his late 30s. Someone said DMX more biblical than Joel Osteen, though. Hey, you might be onto something, man. You might be onto something. I can't call that one. But hopefully that makes sense. So like Lefty Gunplay, awesome. He believes in God now. at least that's a step in the right direction. But again, this goes back to an all or nothing type of thinking. If God can use this person in this one way, then therefore that means that God is always using that person for good. And we look the other way or bury our head in the sand for all the times that Satan can be using that person for bad. That person using and gratifying their own flesh, which causes more harm, right? That's the deeper issue in my opinion. Hey, thank you so much for checking out the video. Please be sure to comment below and subscribe and all that good stuff. And check out this other video that YouTube seems to be recommending just for you. Let me know if they nailed it. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.